Yeah.
We are on.
I believe.
Hoorah. Hey everyone, welcome to Chat TGR. I'm Dan.
I'm Jake.
I'm Joe.
And we're here to talk to you all about guitar pedals and nonsense.
Cool things.
It's been a big week.
It really has.
Mad week.
Yeah. So, I can... How you doing, Lizzie? You all good?
I'm good, thank you.
Good, very good.
Yeah, Lizzie of the past.
Lizzie's looking after us today, doing a wonderful job. Yeah.
Lots of pedals, baby.
BV, thank you, buddy. You just texted in to say, on air, all good. Hopefully now we have the audio sorted out.
Crisp
Camera
audio.
sorted out.
Crisp vision.
The latency sorted out.
Crisp latency. No, that's not right.
No.
Wait.
Full-bodied.
So let's have a look at what's been going on. I think the first thing we'll talk about is the new Ocean machine. So my dear friend Devon,
Heavy Devi.
so, bless him, Devi, Mr. Townsend to you, gave me one of these. This is the Ocean Machine 1. And we filmed with him years ago when this came out. He had contacted so many different companies to see if he could do this.
Right.
Mooer, the only company that said, yeah, we'll give that a go.
Oh,
Go on,
really? I
Mooer.
didn't
Yeah.
know
Big
that.
up Mooer.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and they nailed it. It's such a clever thing. The idea is that there are two delays, right, that you can feed into each other and then create a loop of that, then feed that back into a delay,
Oh, that's cool.
and you can do it and it's just create these textures.
Sure.
And it's got some reverb and stuff in there as well. So this week they've announced the Ocean Machine Mark II. This one only allows for you like 40 seconds of
Something like that. Yeah.
looper time. I think
Right.
the new one's like a minute 40. Better algorithms, more stuff, more clever MIDI stuff.
Hasn't it got like a bunch of freeze stuff in it? So you can like freeze all the delay and the reverb, so you can do like drones.
Yeah,
and
you can
stuff.
do all a bunch of stuff. So Dev is an extraordinary human, but he really better algorithms. I mean, he understands signal path and complexity as well as anyone I've ever met.
Sure.
And when he was describing this to me, when you hear it and it just sounds so random, he knows exactly what's going on. It's a really beautiful thing. And the first rig I built him, he was doing it with a bunch of separate pedals.
I was about to say, if you think about how many pedals you'd need to achieve that,
Yeah.
in terms of like reordering things and delay pedals and reverb pedals, it would be nearly a whole pedal board.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
right.
he found this sound that he really loved. And a lot of his stuff has so much atmosphere. But I think I went to a show and just heard this sound sort of self-evolving, and it was just, he has this on at the start of the show.
That's
And
wicked.
it's really amazing. The other thing with the new one is that it does a bunch more of expression pedal stuff, and you can create presets and store sounds and blah blah blah. But the big thing is that new extended delay time and the new algorithm. So yeah, very cool. Very
Killer.
very pleased for my good friend Dev. We had went to NAMM and introduced Dev to Andy Timmons.
Oh, amazing.
And me, Mick, Danish Pete, Andy Timmons and Dev went and had breakfast together at IHOP. And
Sounds terrible.
It is a breakfast that we will never, ever forget. Andy's hilarious and Devon was on, and these two were just...
I've watched... I remember there was a video of Dev having technical problems at gig, and he basically just does a stand-up comedy routine instead.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he can quite easily be a comedian.
He is so quick-witted.
Yeah.
He's so sharp. But he's such a beautiful guy, and yeah, happy for him that he's killing it. So awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So that was number one.
We have also
Yes.
got a new offering from Mythos.
Ah, yes.
So-
Zach at Mythos.
Yes.
Shout out to Zach. What a legend that man is.
Yeah, I've never had the pleasure. I know he's
Oh,
a
he's
good friend
lovely.
of yours. Yeah.
He's really such a sweetheart and talented, like super talented guitar player.
Sure.
So Zach used to work at Carter Vintage in Nashville.
Sure.
Oh, right.
And you've never met anyone who knows more about vintage guitars than Zach.
Wow.
He's
And
incredible.
now killing it with pedals.
Yeah,
Yeah,
everything
yeah,
I've
yeah.
tried of the Mythos stuff,
Yeah.
it's
My
mind
first-
blowing.
The Golden Fleece, the Chupacabra, he does a version of the Octave, the Argo.
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is
Argo's sick.
insane.
Yeah, it's killer. The
Tiny.
little one, yeah.
Yeah, just brilliant.
Yeah. But they've done what they've called the Envy, which is like a TS type thing.
Right.
And it's got, so it's based off of that classic design that we all know and love.
The classic design.
You know it?
The classic green design.
You know it, you
the
know it.
ODR1.
Yes, sir.
Yes, of course. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um,
Tis a tube screamer
Tis a-
type thing.
Yeah, you got it. But he's also, it's got two like push buttons. One that gives like a low end push as well.
Okay.
And then the other side says it pulls the diodes out
Yep.
from more open, transparent-y
Sure.
type.
Yeah.
So,
So
more op ampy.
yeah, so you then drive the op amp into clipping, and it doesn't. It's much louder.
Mm.
The diodes in the tube screamer. It's a soft clipping pedal.
Yeah.
Diodes are in the feedback loop of the op amp, and it's an amazing design actually, the tube screamer, because the way it's designed, it lets a bit of low end through without clipping,
Sure.
but it's very mid focused, and sometimes that can be overbearing. And the funny thing is, everyone says it cuts treble. We did a show recently, and it's like you turn the treble up in the tube screamer, there's freaking loads of
Yeah.
treble in the thing, but that bit of extra bass is nice.
Yeah.
The other cool thing that Zach has done with this pedal is I think he uses I forget what op amp he's using, but he's socketed the op amp.
Yes,
saw
you're
that as
right.
well,
Yeah.
It's really
Yeah,
really
yeah.
clever. So, you know,
You can.
if you're running the op amp with diodes and the op amp's really linear, they all sound the same. It's if you take the diodes out of the circuit and you crank it so that you're hearing the distortion from the op amps hitting the rails, then that's when you hear the difference in the op amps.
Mm-hmm.
And having it socketed, and you can get, grab a Burr Brown and some OPAs and all,
Yeah.
all those ones, and just try
it.
It's a really,
Yeah,
really
that's a
clever
really
thing.
cool idea.
Yeah, love that. Well done, Zach. Good on you, buddy.
Green with Envy.
And then we've got an incredible new offering from Rainger.
Rainger, David Rainger.
David Rainger, we were trying to
Who
remember his name this
I-
morning, weren't we?
I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, but would love to meet because
Oh man,
he seems like my kind of people.
he's wonderful. We're just every time we put something on the table, it goes bang in the microphone. So very good.
I try.
Yeah, it's called the Pull Focus. It's actually a really interesting design. Watched a demo of it from what is her YouTube name? But
Emily
she's now
Harkis.
Harp Lady. She changed her handle to Harp Lady
Okay.
on YouTube. And there's a little segment from Dave talking about the development of the pedal. It's essentially a drive pedal with the ability to fade in a chorus or a reverb based on your playing.
Okay.
So you can set the envelope of that to quick or slow,
Mm-hmm.
and then when you stop playing, it gates either the reverb or the chorus.
Mm-hmm.
So the start of every note is really clean, and then you can get this big, massive, if you want it, crazy
Right.
reverb thing to happen on the longer notes and not on the
Mhm.
short notes. And he says it's like his version of a multi-effect, and when you think about it, it's actually quite an interesting way of looking at it, that he's essentially created this really specific signal chain in this tiny little pedal that does this incredibly specific thing
Mm.
in this like beautiful way. And it's got a little LED on it so that it shows you how the envelope is like blooming.
Okay.
which is
Right.
That's a really
super
clever
useful.
idea.
So David Rainger is one of the most creative pedal designers I've ever met. Great guitar player, but just so creative. So like the Drone Ranger, for example,
Incredible.
it's a like a delay where you have this drone that you blend in,
Right.
but the case, there's no right angles anywhere on the enclosure.
Oh yes, I have
Right?
seen that now.
And then
The screen.
this, so there's a window into the PCB, and the actual PCB is a little city.
That's
And
cool.
There's a little like a roundabout and
Yeah,
junctions.
That's
and
brilliant.
It's so cool.
it's amazing.
And it's like illuminated inside, so you look inside and it looks like there's a little city
That's awesome.
inside the pedal. It's so good.
I've tried. Is it the Freakenstein or
So there's the
something?
Frankenstein,
yeah.
the Frankenstein.
I've done this, the mini like over the top fuzz
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
I've played
With the
before.
eagle.
Yes.
Yeah.
And famously the liquid one as well, that you can put
Yeah.
liquid into
Which
and it
is
changes.
such an interesting
Yeah.
point of view.
Yeah.
Great new pedal. Watched a bunch of demos. Really excited for it. It's
yeah,
incredible.
Yeah, it's really
wicked.
cool.
Oh, well done, David. That's awesome.
And then we have another offering from Holy Island.
Holy Island.
Thank
Before
you.
we get into that,
Go on.
I just want to say hello. Thank you all for joining us, of course. We've got Casey Cole on. This is greetings all.
Hello.
Smash that thumbs up. Thank you, mate. Paul Matulovic. G'day, mate. And Paul also says, happy belated birthday, Dan. So thank you, mate. I appreciate that. Which was on Monday. It was a lovely day. Lovely.
It was a lovely day.
Had nice
Mark
lunch,
Siever's
didn't we?
on. Jacques Butler is on. Scott Curry is on. He says, sounds good so far. So that was a bit, I think he's waiting for something.
The
Anyway,
inevitable.
but thank you, Scott. We got Lizzie's watching that, so if anything goes wrong, we,
Forward your emails to lizzie@thegigrig.com.
There you go.
Or complaints.
Paul Matulovic also says the Extra Hot, which is a Carter exclusive, is an ODR design. So that's one thing that Zach would have done for Mythos for that. Eric Warrington says, hey everyone from upstate New York, Adirondack Mountains. Very nice.
Cool, man.
Yo.
Beautiful. Oh, Matt Swanton. Hello from Massachusetts. Lovely. Very
Yo.
nice.
Hello, everyone.
And Oliver Boyson, happy birthday, Dan. Thank you very much. Yes. Very lovely.
Birthday boy.
Birthday boy. Cool. Okay, so where were
Holy
we?
Island.
Holy Island.
One of the best names for a device. Cannibal Pride.
It's like a.
So Cannibal Pride is actually the name of the album. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah,
And
okay. This is
it's cool, man.
genius.
Yeah, I love this.
What's the band called? Smoldering Noise, I think. Sorry if I got that wrong. But basically, the guy behind Holy Island, who I've forgotten his name, great start. His band has released a physical release of their first record called Cannibal Pride, and inside that cassette is a PCB for this noise drone pedal they've created called the Cannibal Pride.
That's sick.
Which you can build. He's already put a video up of a build guide for it.
What a
And
legend.
inside the artwork, it's got a bomb and a build guide for the noise synth as part of the physical record. Yeah. So it's like incredible merch that you build your own drone synth in a pedal enclosure
BYO
as part of the release,
DS.
That is amazing.
which is really cool, right?
They've also released the album on cassette.
Exactly, and the PCB comes inside the packaging of the cassette. So it's 3 oscillators, a low, mid, and a high, with CV control, a volume, I think a range, so it can go from super low to more in the audio range, and then I think it's called like is it the Smolder or something, which I think is some sort of like voltage sag, which basically makes the drone synth sort of collapse in on itself and become Geiger bleeps and bloops.
Cool.
But the thing that's really interesting about it from my point of view is you can tune all of those 3 oscillators to a chord, but the oscillators interact with each other. So if you set the low oscillator super low, it acts like a tremolo.
Okay.
And if you set it at a dissonant relation, you get like beating and stuff
Oh,
between
cool.
them.
So, Lizzie, on the desk,
Yes.
can you just pull the faders down on each
Bear with.
microphone half a notch?
I'm ready
Just
to
a
sort
tiny
it.
Apparently it's a little bit hot today, so let us know if
Little
that's
bit
any
hot.
better.
Summer's here.
It's a bit steamy in the room, isn't it, gents?
All done.
All done. Thank you, Lizzie. You're the best.
But I just thought it was a really interesting.
Oh, it's a brilliant way to do it.
yeah,
Yeah.
such a cool way of doing it.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Lovely.
Cool.
There you go.
Really?
And what else do we have today? Is that it? Do we have
No,
anything
we've got
more?
two other things.
Okay.
We've got
Two other things.
tuna,
Oh, okay.
the tuna fuzz
Yes, okay,
thing,
so-
that's killer.
Beatronics. I first met those guys at NAMM many years ago.
Were they in their beekeeper outfits?
No, they weren't. They weren't. Did they? Is that what they do now? They're beekeeper outfits?
I've seen a bunch of photos of them at trade shows in beekeeper
Okay.
outfits.
And
If you're going to do it.
they
Yeah.
do it. They do a bunch of really just like super clever things. Lots of fuzz pedals, but a really interesting take.
Yeah,
On-
man. The
on
PLL
fuzz.
take is really cool.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really cool. So,
B, I think.
Yeah.
so BV says, "Good here on the studio monitors. Thank you, mate." So, what they've released is the Tuna Fuzz, which is basically a fuzz pedal inside a tuna can.
So cool.
It's a single knob fuzz. It's a 3 transistor fuzz. And it's interesting. So when you think of 3 transistor fuzzes, you normally think of tone benders.
Yeah.
If you imagine a fuzz face, which is a classic 2 transistor, the tone bender basically puts a single transistor buffer on the input.
Sure.
Why tone benders work great with humbuckers, right? But they don't clean up all that well. Well, apparently this is a 3 transistor fuzz that cleans up really nicely.
Interesting.
So I'm really interested to
Yeah,
see.
that's cool.
But their fuzzes do sound really unique.
Yeah, they are an interesting take. All of
Yeah.
them have got something special about them.
Yeah, and they sound really
And
great.
that chorus pedal they do is insane.
Yes. So there you go. Well done, everyone at Beatronics. Still pushing it, still keeping it real and lovely. Well done.
Trying to think of some B-based pun. Yeah, I got nothing. I
Okay,
got nothing.
I'll leave that with you.
Yeah, give me an hour. Yeah, finally.
I'm just going to read this out
I'm
because
really
I'm going to leave
excited.
this
Really
because we're going
excited.
to. I know you are. Cool your jets. Because we're going to go from this into today's conversation, which is about analog/digital hybrid rigs.
That you swapped to a Line 6 pod.
And
You heard it here first.
Andre Norman says, just received my G3S top board upgrade. Can't wait to install it on the board this weekend. 19 pedals and counting. You go, Andre.
Awesome.
Thank you, mate. And Simon McCarthy says, did you guys see the new Jack White signature Fender amp and guitars announced yesterday?
Yes.
Super interesting.
Yes,
Such
we
an
did.
interesting
I
take.
said to you about 3 hours ago, when are you going to buy that Telecaster?
And I said, it's not a Telecaster. It looks very interesting, but that's not a guitar that I need in my life. The amp, however,
Yeah, that's
It looks
really
fascinating.
cool.
it looks really cool.
Yeah.
So it's in the size of a super reverb,
Yeah, about that, I think.
or a bassman. It's got one 15-inch speaker, one 10-inch
Yeah.
speaker. It's got a set of 6 L6s and a set of 6 V6s. So
Built-in harmonic trem as well.
yeah, so that's where that
That
comes in. Yeah. So I'd
And
be
the
really
reverb.
interested to
The reverb mode is super interesting, where you can run the reverb into both the 15 and the 10, or just the 10.
Yeah,
So you
that's
can
cool.
have the full-bodied 15-ness. So it's almost like a wet dry thing inside
Interesting.
the amp, which is super interesting.
So a lot of his stuff is such low octave
Yeah.
down stuff that 15 will really deliver that, and then
The harmonic trem thing, the stereo version, the stereo mode where you go between the 15 and the 10 seems really interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
very cool.
Yeah. So, guys, if you have any questions, please just write them down and we will get to them. If we miss any, Lizzie will catch them and we'll get you sorted out. So, Dennis Coverband says, questions for Dan and the gang. Why is it
Why is it that
Why
Joe dropped
is
his
it-
bottle?
that I don't experience any phase issues when splitting my signal in stereo from an Empress Echo system to a TC Electronics HOF. So the reason would be that whatever you're sending your stereo signals to are in phase.
And the pedals themselves are in phase
Yeah,
as well.
if you've got a stereo output from a pedal, those stereo outputs really should be going through the same circuitry, therefore they would be in phase. Would be a travesty of a design if you had two outputs from a pedal and
We know a few
one
pedals.
flips from a stereo pedal, the one flips a phase.
I will not name names, but there are a few that we've encountered.
We have seen
Oh,
it.
okay.
How you after?
They will remain nameless, but I've seen it.
Okay, it might be if you've got a pedal that sets a wet-dry mix. But anyway, but that would suggest that the pedals that you've got, but you're sending a stereo feed to, and then you're going to the two separate amplifiers, it would suggest that everything's in phase all the way through. The problem being is if you're using two different amplifiers and it's a 50-50, it's a coin toss whether they're going to be in phase or not.
Yeah.
If you're using two amplifiers that are the same, then they're going to be, same design, going to be in phase. So, yeah, it all depends on how many gain stages and specifically you've got, like when you go, say you look at a buffer, you've got a non-inverting buffer and an inverting buffer. And a non-inverting gain stage and inverting gain stage basically. And it just depends on how many inverting gain stages you're going through.
Sure.
And the speakers as well. Quite often within a bass rig, know quite a lot of guys that have a 15 and 10s. And you can get some not so nice phase cancellation between those two speakers because it's obviously phase dependent as well.
Yes, of course, but I think that
Slow.
the 10, I'm having a really interesting time at the moment using my Princeton, which is just a 10-inch Princeton, with the matchless, which is 12-inch.
Interesting.
And I am loving it. And I'll tell you why. Normally when I do the wet dry thing and I put, I might have the mattress and the Lazy J or Deluxe Reverb or whatever, the way that you get them in phase and everything, it's gorgeous, but the way that those speakers and especially the bottom end couples together, it's part of the sound and it sounds really massive, but it can be also challenging to control the volume.
Sure.
Set like that. What I'm finding is with the 12 and the 10, I'm not getting that coupling thing.
That's
what
interesting.
I am getting is the sonic gloriousness of the
Like
two
clarity,
amps
yeah.
that just blends together
Sure, man,
without
yeah.
giving me that
Because
coupling.
they're doing different
But
jobs,
if you think
taking
about it,
different
it's like
spaces.
being in a band and having two of the exact same guitar
Yeah,
versus one of you's on a more of a Les Paul and one of you's more on a Strat.
yeah, for
And
sure.
they just sit in different places, and then phase isn't so much.
You're not fighting for the same
concern,
territory.
right? So
Yeah.
that makes total sense.
Yeah. So yeah, it's really great. I think
That's cool.
I'm getting a new band together to go and do some things, and I'm just aware that while I'll be loud, I don't want to be
That guy.
crushing.
Obnoxious.
That guy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'll be
You will be that guy.
I'll
but
be compacting.
There's a
but not
certain band we're all
crushing.
thinking of right now that Dan's wishing he was in, who played a show and didn't have any guitars through the PA.
Who's that?
ESB. When you're referring when I
Yeah.
saw ESB a few months ago, and there was none of Mike's guitar through the PA because his stage sound was that loud.
It wasn't needed.
Yeah, so that's Empire State Bastard, Mike Van Aert, and Simon Neal from Biffy have their new band together, and I'm so glad you guys have seen them live because I saw them and it was like
Unreal.
otherworldly.
And
Simon doing his thing.
Yeah.
So Simon isn't playing guitar in this; he's just out there being a rock star.
yeah,
Far out, man. You just can't take your eyes off him.
yeah, for
He
sure.
just-
Captivating.
Ah, but Mike is such an astonishing guitar player.
He's the man.
Yeah.
He's
So
the
anyway,
man.
that was my. I think it's interesting that I've got a 15 and a 10
Yeah, it is.
because, and so you've got to imagine there's separate power stages, right? Because of the harmonic tremolo. I think that's there's a possibility that's going to be a really, really cool sound.
Definitely. It's just a really cool take.
I've never got
on.
I've never got on with 15s though.
They're very slow generally.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting.
I struggle with the 15 from a bass player perspective, let alone a guitar perspective, because it feels like you play a note and you almost feel like you're waiting for it to like warm up.
Matt Swanson says, I find a 10-inch like a Princeton fills in more bass than most 12-inch equipped amps. It's interesting, I think, with some of those amplifiers, you can push them harder and they create harmonics, and that can seem...
Well, the majority of bass cabs are 10-inch for a reason.
I had a bass player use the cab Henry the 8x8.
Yeah, I know the one.
Trace Elliott?
Henry the 8x8.
Trace Elliott? Yeah, I think there are Trace Elliott's.
And
that's brilliant.
I mean, it's a big cab. Like loading that up the stairs at
Henry
Shepherd's
the
Bush
8x8.
every Sunday was fun. But man alive,
It's really
what
tight
a
and-
sound.
Wow.
It was incredible.
Well
Joe
done.
had an 8x10 at one point, didn't we? And I swear to God, like it's like you got that on the Monday, and then every show onwards
Forever.
was always upstairs or
Yeah.
downstairs.
American SVTCL plus 8x10. The
And it was-
greatest bass tone of all time.
And it was great that it had wheels and like a bar that you could roll it, but it had like no side handles, so you'd have someone holding the bar carrying it up the stairs and someone holding the feet at the bottom.
But it sounded glorious.
It did
Yeah.
sound glorious, but it was a big old fridge.
Peter Verver says, hey guys, when is the new web editor for the G3 coming out? So we have been tweaking the software. The latest version that we have, we are now working on. It's all looking good.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that will go out to the beta testers, I would say on Friday.
Yeah.
And then all being well,
That's
and we're
it.
in the
That's out.
game,
Mhm.
that's out. And once that's out, we're straight onto the web editor.
Yeah, we're dying to get that
Yeah.
rolling.
Definitely. So we are working on it.
Keep rolling, baby.
Excellent. Okay. And okay, Pedal 7 says, can I use the G3 rack extension for extra loops with a full G3 assigned MIDI address?
Oh, okay.
So the extension literally takes the audio from G3 and extends it so you can put it in a rack, but you still have all of the control in the floor unit. So what you would need to do is, I mean, you can, things like the Remotus Loopy 2, which will give you 2 extra stereo loops or 2 extra mono loops. But you can't just have an extension kit and then add that onto an already...
Yeah, you wouldn't give
G3.
you like 24 loops. You'd need like a slave G3 that is the brain of the extension kit, plus the one you already have on the floor.
Yeah.
That would be the way that you could control it.
We have been talking about doing a rack version
Yeah.
of G3.
I think there is definitely merit in that.
Yeah. We're thinking about it because it's a massive undertaking.
Yeah.
But, looking at the sort of, looking at the pro audio stuff that we're looking at, and when we go to see, big live shows and everything's in racks, and part of the idea behind G3 with the extension kit is that you could have your pedals in racks, off stage. It's great. We've got a massive rack that Jake's been working on, which is great, and I'm really considering doing that for myself and
Oh,
a
are you?
smaller rack.
Okay, fair enough.
I feel like you've been talking about that for a while.
Yeah. I mean, I think because I'm been messing around with new pedals and stuff for a while, I'm loving having the pedals in front of me.
Yeah.
But I think once I'm settled, there's a
Get it off
strong,
stage,
there's a
fair
strong
enough.
option getting that off stage. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about the big
Final-
drop for today.
Yes, that literally happened like an hour ago.
Okay.
Neural DSP have released the Nano Cortex. So they've done their quad Cortex unit, and they've made a really small little pedal type thing.
Yep.
Is it like sort of King of Tone size? Or is it
I
slightly
think it's
bigger?
a
No, it's
tiny
a bit
bit
bigger.
wider,
Sure.
but it's in that ballpark, so it's small. And Yeah, what I thought was particularly interesting that they've kept the capture technology in the small thing.
Yeah, that is cool.
So it's got like a mic input on the side,
Yeah.
so you can still do the whole capture thing. But yeah, it's got stereo out, full MIDI control, and all of the Bluetooth stuff that the big boy has, that you can link it up to your phone and download other patches and that sort of stuff.
Okay.
But it really surprised me, to be honest. I mean, I know there's a lot of stuff going that way with the Kemper pedal and the Line 6 stuff, but
And also, what's the other one? The smaller, the
Tonex.
Tonex. Those
Mm-hmm.
they
Yeah.
do a mini one, don't they?
Yeah, it's like a
Yes,
nano pedal.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
The only downside of it is just a MIDI in and MIDI out over USB, which is a little bit of a pain.
Yeah.
That's a niggle,
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, you can't please everyone, as
course,
we
yeah.
well know.
Yeah.
But what are they? So that pedal, what's it, 500 quid?
yeah, 499.
And who are they competing with? With that, the Tonex, I'm guessing.
Yeah,
Yeah, the Tonex,
Kemper.
the mini
The
Kemper.
Kemper.
Player?
There's a mini Kemper, is it?
Yeah,
The-
Kemper player.
Yeah,
Kemper
Kemper
player.
HX Stomp.
Yeah, HX Stomp
That
or
category.
HX1.
Yeah, in that category as well.
Yeah.
Okay, are they always using the same similar technology, or is they all different?
I mean, they're all kind of multi-effects with different,
Their own takes
technically
on
the
it.
Zoya is also within that wheelhouse, so the Zoya is a bit more esoteric. But they're all
Right.
kind of multi-effects with
Yeah,
signal chain stuff.
Okay.
I think the HX Stomp is currently the clear winner based on public opinion. I feel
Yeah.
like I see HX Stomp videos on my feed, like
everything else though is still so new though, isn't it?
true.
The Tonex stuff. Okay, that's probably about a year old now, but
Yeah.
the Kemper I think came out earlier this year.
Although to be fair, we play with a ton of people that use Nueral, like the whole band.
Yeah, the quad
every single one of
Cortex.
them has got a
It's
quad
been game
Cortex.
changing,
Hmm.
So that's definitely a big thing. So
and that unit itself is quite a small,
Yeah,
tidy, compact unit.
not
So
bad.
that's
Yeah,
what
right.
surprises me
Yeah.
that they did an even smaller one sort of straight away. But it's
Well, I guess their point of view is they want to get the neuralness onto a standard pedalboard.
yeah, yeah.
I guess the quad Cortex is a bit too
It
big.
is the pedal board, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas if you could have all of that on your pedalboard,
Yeah.
then
I'm excited by it.
Yeah,
I'm
it's pretty
excited.
mad.
And they're in stock as well.
Yeah, yeah.
When I was reading about it on Anderton's website, it was like, order now to get it for tomorrow, and it's like that. It's
Yeah.
crazy
Right.
that something gets dropped like that and you can have it the next day.
yeah.
So let's jump back to that, because we're going to spend a bit of time talking about hybrid analog and digital rigs, because
Cool.
both you guys use that,
Yes.
and how you can incorporate this sort of technology
Yeah,
with pedals. A couple of quick questions. We've got Darren Ames says, is there a difference between output impedance of G3 and G3S? There's not. They're exactly the same. When you talk about input and output impedance, so G3 is still completely true bypass unless you engage the pre-gain or the post-gain.
Mm-hmm.
So those circuits are exactly the same, and they're low. They're like 100 ohms
Yep.
output,
Mm-hmm.
670k ohms on the input. So high input impedance, low output impedance. But apart from that,
Yeah, it's
they're
straight through.
Straight
Yeah.
through. So if you're not using pre or post gain, the output impedance will be the last pedal that you've got selected in that chain. So one of the cool things about using the pre and post gain as buffers, especially pre gain, post gain works the same. It gives you a consistent impedance.
Mhm.
So if you've got one pedal that's 1k, one pedal that's 100k, one pedal that's 250k, by engaging the post gain as the last thing and just setting it at unity, that means that you've got a consistent 100 ohms, boom, that's going to feed everything.
Yeah, so your tone isn't constantly changing depending on what the last pedal is, because
Yeah,
there's different
but-
outputs and impedances.
But sometimes, especially with gain stages,
Mhm.
you want that.
Yeah.
So we filmed with an old blues breaker yesterday from 96, and part of the magic of that pedal is how sensitive it is to
Sure.
impedance. And a lot of overdrive pedals, I know some of the, is it the Honeybee overdrive from
I know that I can see the pedal in my head.
yeah, Mad Professor. Or anyway,
Is it?
there's a bunch of overdrives I picked up going, oh, this feels really good. It feels really nice. They're pretty much all to a man got like 100k input impedance,
Interesting.
which is low. It's not like a 13k input impedance, which is like a classic fuzz face, but it sets up this dynamic relationship with the with the pickups, because I don't use active. It's all old school. And if that's a thing, then putting a buffer at the start of that's going to ruin it, which is not ruin it, but it'll change that.
Yeah. It's like the most common question we get, and I always say, almost without question, that it makes most sense to put a buffer at the end of the signal chain if you've got a long cable run. But otherwise, I don't tend to suggest it at the start, because there's this magic relationship
and that's the beauty of G3, right? Because you don't need a buffer to drive anything.
Yeah.
You put them in the loop, and the input of the circuit is going to see the output of your guitar. So, but then the beauty of the pre and post gain is you can program them by the up and down buttons per preset.
Yeah.
So, there's all that. So I hope the BJFE Honeybee, that's it.
That's the one.
Yeah. And Paul Matulovic says, Barefoot Effects, the sweet honey is the Mad Professor. That's the one I was thinking of. Yeah.
Thank you,
because we have a honeybee here as well.
Yeah,
we do.
Which is they sound amazing. Oliver Boyson says the Nano Cortex doesn't have the modeling though. It's just the capture tech.
I think you can load from their Cortex cloud, they call it. I think you can load in stuff. Again, I came out an hour ago, so my scrambling was limited to. Sorry if I've got that wrong, but I'm pretty sure you can load it from the app. I think.
Right. Okay.
Super interesting either way.
Yeah, I think it's. And again, we're going to get onto that. I think there's a really cool time happening there. You can have analog and digital stuff in harmony.
Darren Ames says, thanks lads, I absolutely love my G3 and look forward to upgrading to the G3S top board. And is 8 gain stages too much? I think not. Absolutely not.
It's completely contextual. It's contextual.
Yep. No, but it's the thing is, man, I mean, we're surrounded by mostly gain stages.
Yeah.
And they all sound different. They all do a thing.
For sure.
And it just depends on you as a player and the guitar you're using and what you connect with. And it changes, throughout your playing career, depending on
everything. What you're listening to,
all that stuff. All that stuff. So yeah, absolutely not. I hope you end up with more.
We're nothing but enablers here.
So right. There's some great chats going on in the chat. That's awesome. Thank you so much, people. Right. So let's get into it. Analog and digital hybrid rigs. So you guys, when I first met you, you were both. You were using a diesel, is that right?
No, I wish.
That's my partner.
Oh, she was using a diesel. Claire was using a diesel.
I was on a JCM.
You on a 900?
900.
900. Okay.
Needed that second channel, baby.
Yeah. Okay. Right. There.
No EQ.
I had a JCM 900 in Australia.
Did you?
And you get the right one, and they're great.
Oh, dude, it was unreal. We borrowed a bunch of amp heads off of some friends for recording, because Joe's partner Claire produces our band. So we went round all of our friends to see what we could get. Got this JCM and tried it out, and it sounded so good. Loved it, and I text my mate Sean, and I was like, "How would you ever part with it?" Because his band, I think they had like an Orange deal, and he was playing Orange, and he was like, "Yeah, I'll get rid of, I'll part with it. 350 quid ? I was like, "What's your PayPal? I will send you the money this second." So 350 quid.
Wow.
Because it took Jake a while, because my other half, shout out CLS Productions and Western Audio, she has an incredible
You don't need to shout out her studio, because she is booked up solid. I mean,
she is, yeah.
You tried to get in, didn't you?
I did. It's like, do us a favour. Nope, no way. We
She's
are
got no
booked
time.
solid. What's the name of the studio?
Western Audio,
Western Audio. Right.
Swindon.
So, yeah.
But
Claire is your other half who runs Western Audio.
Claire has an incredible ability of finding a piece of gear and just looking on the internet and it just appearing. So she discovered the Diesel VH4 through Muse, which a load of other people use, Smashing Pumpkins, Metallica, and got up the next day and typed in onto Google search Diesel VH4, and then we drove to Bath and
You buy it from Nolly?
we bought a Diesel VH4 off of Nolly from Periphery
No
before
way.
Periphery were a big thing. So we were sat in his house and he bought down a £3,000 black machine. Don't know if you're
Oh,
familiar with it.
yeah.
And he went,
The guitar.
yeah. And he went, there you go, have a go. And Claire's like playing away. And it's that thing where you don't know what to play because suddenly all of it goes out of
Sweet Child of Mine.
Yeah,
Next.
literally, yeah. And then he came down and he went,
Slow blues. Da-na-na.
and then he came down and he brought down his Pride and Joy that was like 8 or 10 grand and went to hand it to me. And I was like, don't let me hold it because I break everything. So anyway, Claire gets this incredible amp, Diesel VH4, if you don't know it, like the greatest amp of all time. And it took Jake a fair amount of time to find an amp that would match it or even come close to it, because the VH4 is such a
100
monster,
watts.
Right.
100-watt monster, modded from the gates of hell in Germany.
Because when I first saw you guys, that's what you were playing. And then you guys went to Kemper's.
Yes.
Right? So, I had a very interesting conversation yesterday with Richard Pratt.
Chard.
Yes.
Chard.
I can't call him that. It just sounds awful when I say
Chard.
it with the Australian accent.
Anyway, just say it once for the viewers.
Churd.
Thank you.
So, and we had a chat about this yesterday. It was super interesting because we did a show on wireless units and we got to talking about the stacking of latency, digital latency, when you have all of these units in a row and how that can stack up, because you've got, if you're using a Kemper or a digital unit, you've got that latency which changes per preset on the Kemper. I think they're releasing something which is going to sort that out.
I believe so, yeah.
But then if you've got a wireless unit going into that, then going into a digital desk, going into your wireless in-ears, the latency of all those things stacks. So, and he said, look, that he looks after a load of session guitar players because he's on the road with Prodigy, apart from Biffy, he looks after.
He did Stormzy as well.
Yeah, Stormzy, yep. Dave. When Dave had the flamethrower out of his guitar.
Of course, yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
So he was saying when a session guitar player, they're just essential. It means that they can do their job. He said, but I've seen loads of bands go to this stuff. I said, what's one thing in common that you've seen from bands that go from the real deal to the bands that are going to this stuff? He said, they have less fun.
That's interesting.
Which I thought was really interesting.
So, my take on it
Yep.
is, if you, obviously our experience is mainly Kemper.
And I'm not saying either way. I'm just saying this is, it was, and just to round that circle off, he was saying, when they go from that because of production necessities and that sort of stuff, instead of just going, a bit more reverb, it's like, okay, I need a bit more reverb. Let me just pull out the laptop and let me.
Interesting.
So he said it kills a lot of spontaneity with that stuff. What happens is you've got a production thing that's cookie cutter, same every single night. Obviously, for some things, it's important to be able to do that. But he's noticed that they know what to expect. That sense of being able to just change things on the fly. You know what I mean? So I thought that was really interesting.
I think so I've been using the Kemper for a good, I reckon, maybe 6 years.
Right.
And I think, obviously, getting to know your equipment is paramount.
Yes.
Because I find that, I find the UI on the Kemper super straightforward and stuff. And
I was going to say, it's as close to a real amp as...
Exactly.
Like the UI.
Yeah.
As much as anything.
And what I think a lot of people do is they get excited by the idea that it's this infinite toolbox of 1,000 amps, and for each verse and each chorus I'm going to have a different sound, but that's not consistent, and then that gets overwhelming, and you're like, you know, I want a clean tone. Do I want like an AC clean tone, or do I want like a Fender clean tone, or do I want... And then you sit there for ages, and then it's almost the, you know, the streaming music effect that you want to quickly just put an album on, because you're doing a 10-minute drive, and you've got every album in the world, you can't think of anything. Whereas when you've got a CD in your car, you've got 4 CDs, you're like, cool, I'll just chuck that in.
Right.
And I think it's the same thing with the digital stuff. If you...
So option paralysis.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that's important, that's maybe slightly different from our perspective, is that before Jake and Claire moved to the Kemper, they had their dream rig. So Claire had a VH4 and a bunch of pedals. Jake had a JCM 900 and a bunch of pedals. And then we went into the studio, and Claire profiled the diesel and the JCM through the cab that they were going to use live.
Right.
And I actually think, if I remember rightly, Claire had the Kemper for studio stuff, and on the final day of when we were working, this is before she had Western, we were working at a studio, we just profiled the diesel and the Marshall in the room to sort of capture that, just in case we went, oh, we want to retract that or have that magic. So we captured it, and it was so close to the real thing. Like, I remember Claire did the profile and then trying it out and be like, cool, let's mute the actual diesel, and it was the Kemper, it wasn't the diesel.
But so the question that I've got with that, and people doing this A/B stuff, because I remember doing an A/B thing, and it was an A/B in the modeler, and it was switching, like, this is the mic and this is the modeler. It's like, okay, but it was still going through the AD converters in the modeler. It wasn't an analog through.
Oh, this was through a desk.
Yeah, this was through a desk.
So you're micing in the desk.
Yeah.
And okay.
So you're muting the whole signal chain.
Right.
And then going to the Kemper.
Okay. So
it wasn't within the Kemper.
So I guess that's one of the things, right? You're saying that the sound was so close, listening to it from a mic through studio monitors.
I see where you...
Yeah, of course.
And whereas for me, the sound of an amp on stage is very different than the sound of a mic thing through studio monitors. You know.
So my counter to that is, one of the first times we played with those guys on Kempers, Claire was able to turn around and get the same harmonic from the Kemper that she always got from the diesel VH4 by standing in the same position, and the response was so the same.
But what's she listening it to?
Through the cab.
So you've got
it's a real amp.
They're powered
Yeah, because they're powered.
With we use Zilla 212s.
And that's what they were profiled. That's what they were profiled through.
Right.
And I think that's the important thing is...
What speakers?
Celestion V30s.
So you're using guitar speakers and guitar cabs.
Guitar cabs.
Yeah, right.
Because I think that's also an important thing, like with the whole FR debate, that they obviously sound awesome. I'm not knocking FRs, but they do give you frequencies that you're not used to hearing through a guitar.
Because it's a big low pass filter. That's what a cab does. It doesn't give you all of those frequencies. It's like the conversation with buffer versus non-buffer. The buffer isn't necessarily trebly. It's just giving you more of those signals from more of those frequencies from the guitar that are taken out by the length of the cable, right?
Yeah.
Do you see where I'm coming from?
I do. But that, again, it's not the sound of the buffer necessarily. It's the way the buffer reacts with the pickups and moves the resonant frequency up.
Yeah.
I guess the thing for me, that technology is great, right? But if I've got to have a guitar cab on stage, I don't really see the difference between, if I've got to have a guitar cab on stage, might as well just have my matchless, because that's the sound. I understand it from a point of view if it's a silent stage and everyone's on in-ears and you've got to go do there's just no way I could do that. But I understand it in that context.
So we do also have that option using the Kempers. That's the thing. So
for you guys, because you guys play, you do what's the name of the function band?
Rogues.
and you guys are really busy with that. But you also have an original.
All is about,
All is a Val.
And we have cabs on stage for all ears, and we don't with Rogues. Like the wedding we played last week, we were in this tiny barn that was literally, I feel like our stage space was similar to this little nook that we've got here.
Right.
And I had my Kemper just on like a windowsill to the side, whereas if I had any form of actual speaker behind me, I wouldn't have fit on the stage space that we've been laid out, because I had like Sean, our drummer, in the corner of it. I literally think I had about that much to get my board and myself in. So again, for that convenience.
Okay, so as far as a practical thing for you guys, you have a consistent sound at different volumes, because doing function things, one of the things you need to be considerate of is the volume challenges. And I'm guessing you guys did gigs with the diesel and the JCM 900 where you couldn't turn them up because those amps sound different at different levels.
Exactly.
Right?
The other thing that's really good in terms of using the Kemper versus using a real amp is that you hand the sound guy an XLR.
Yeah.
And they don't mic up the cab. It just comes out the Kemper.
Right.
And then your cab on stage is just for you. So you can turn it up and it doesn't affect what is hitting front of house. Although obviously once you get above a certain volume it will affect what front of house hears. Yeah. But you can still then use the cab for you, not I'm just going to turn my cab up a bit. You need to regain stage.
Yeah, the stereotype of the guitar player knocking themselves up and making that feed hotter.
Especially if we're doing like support shows and you've got like -5 minutes to set up, then you can just throw that stuff on and it's just plug and play and it just goes rather than...
So there's some really practical reasons why you'd use that, and you guys are happy with them sonically.
Sound amazing.
Now let's talk about how you integrate pedals, analog pedals with them, and why would you? Because I have tried these things and consistently plug into them and go, I think they're great. We have loads of G3 users, like Lyle Workman, who's out on tour at the moment with Sarah McLachlan. And he is astonishing. He used to play guitar for Sting.
Oh, cool.
He's the most astonishing guitar player, but it's a silent stage for them. And he's got 2 Tonex.
Right.
Basically coming out of his pedal board. I think I've got Tonex in loops 11 and 12 into that.
Yeah, cool.
Straight out to wherever that goes off to. And he sounds amazing. When he's in the studio, he just bypasses them and goes straight into all of his other stuff.
Cool.
So I totally get it as for practical things, but when we talk about using pedals and stuff, and for example, my treble booster hits the EF86 valve of my matchless and also the EF86 input of my SE30 in a very specific way. So how do you integrate then the pedals with your Kempers? Is it just a matter of I'm plugging the board straight into the Kemper? I mean, how and what challenges do you have with that?
So I run everything into the front of the Kemper. The Kemper does have an effects loop, so if I was running sort of delays and modulations and stuff, I could do that. But the main effects that I'm using on my board, like a clon type thing and like a tube screamer type thing, and it reacts in the same sort of way,
right? To
give you that, with the tube screamer I'm using for a little bit more sustain and to poke out a little bit more. And I think a lot of it comes back to the conversation we were having earlier about the rack stuff and your rig. There is an enjoyment of bending over and going, that's that.
So you still get that. Okay, so having gain stages and stuff you're using the Kemper like an amp.
Yeah.
Right, you're not using it like a multi-effects processor.
I use my Kemper like my amp plus a timeline plus a big sky. That's how I see it. So all my delays.
Okay, so the the wetter
Yeah.
effects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's on your board? We should have had a picture of your board.
Yeah.
You can see the boards on the thumbnail. Lizzie, if you want to throw the thumbnail up again so that everyone can see the boys' pedal boards.
I've got a Earthquake Tentacle.
Yep.
I've actually just swapped this week because Dan Coggins hooked me up with a Cogmeister. So
come
I've
on.
completely changed up what I'm doing.
And it's a custom Cogmeister as well.
Yeah. So I can split each side into loops.
Very good.
So I've sacked off a few things, but so I've got the Cogmeister that's in the space almost as the Tumnus type thing, and I had an Earthquake of Plumes that it's replaced. Death by
I might
Audio,
have stolen.
Fuzz War.
Yep.
Yeah, Joe. So the second the plumes come off, Joe was like, "Can I borrow that?" So I can already see that
they're
over on
all-
this board.
The gain stages.
Yeah.
Anything else specific apart from the gain stages?
The
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 Tensor, the
Did
Maris.
you get your own one, or did I get you one?
Joe got one, and then I had Joe's one. So no, I'm still managing to.
What did I get you for Christmas? I thought I got
You got me a rainbow machine.
rainbow machine.
You got me a
that
rainbow
was it.
machine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, because I've got one as well.
Yes, and you're like, why is there two?
Yeah,
It's like a glitch
okay.
in the Matrix.
Yeah, because I can't play without that pedal now.
It's so cool, man.
Okay, so what we're saying is you have these pedals, as we all do, that we get attached to,
Yeah.
and
Especially these weirder things that,
the more esoteric
Yeah.
sounds.
'Cause-
Or like specific things like the bit commander you've got,
Yeah.
or the tentacle.
Yes.
Like they do such a specific thing that to try and recreate that within something like a camper would be so much work. And
Okay,
like,
and you with the Zoya.
I mean, the Zoya has just changed everything.
Right.
Like, the Zoya completely changed my view on effects pedals entirely because it's this open source thing. So is only cornered by its internal CPU and your own creativity, pretty much.
Right.
So I can pretty much wake up one day and go, what would it sound like if I added these two things together, controlled by this, and then I can just make it happen?
Okay,
So I'm using that purely from a creative standpoint. That's the only reason why it's digital, is because there's more that you can physically do
sure.
inside it.
Okay, so what are things? Okay, so there's no problem with taking your pedal board and just plugging it straight into these digital solutions. What are things to be aware of? So I'm like, for me, there's depending on, like the EF86 valve is a really good example for me. It reacts differently with everything
Yeah.
I put into it.
Yeah.
So how does that work in a camper, as far as, because I'm assuming the camper's just got like a 1 mega ohm
I
input
believe so, yeah.
impedance. So then that's consistent.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, apart from impedances and stuff, is there anything else that's important to be aware of when you're using modeling?
So the big thing from my point of view is if you're using not a guitar cab or not a bass cab,
Right.
it's easy to forget that both of those things are essentially giant low pass filters, and they take a lot of the energy out of the very top end, which is why I think a lot of the guys that use the FRFRs, it ends up sounding like overly harsh because they're still
picky.
using emulations of those pedals,
Okay.
but the top end is not being softened as it would in a cab.
So do you use cabs and turn the cab simulator off?
So you can set the cab simulator to go out of the main output that we sent to front of house, but then not out of the speaker out.
So you're using your on-stage cabs as your own fallback,
Yeah.
and you turn the cab sim off on those ones.
Yeah.
And then you have the cab sim on to the main stuff going on the front of the house.
Which takes off that harshness that, because if you imagine,
Sounds like you left a wire on. It's that.
you imagine
Okay.
you ran your pedal board straight into a desk in a studio, it would
it's
get
horrific.
pretty harsh. It's
Yeah.
the same thing.
Right.
You're missing that main component of a guitar setup, which is a big fat low pass filter at the end
Sure.
that's
Yeah, totally.
carving off all the top.
So let's say, we did a show on TPS a few weeks ago, just about the deluxe reverb and how
Yeah.
it's the best amp ever. And there's not much I can't get out of that. But what I can't do is sound like Metallica
Yeah.
through that. Now, not saying it's impossible to sound heavy through that, because if I throw an amp tweaker
Sure.
Metal Pro on that
Yeah, of
thing,
course,
it
yeah,
sounds insane. But I don't, for me personally, I've never felt lacking from having the real amps on
Sure,
stage.
sure.
I've also lucky enough to play in situations where I can do that,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And when we're in Tin Spirits, the idea of not having
Sure,
amps on
I totally
stage
get
is
that.
just, you
I mean,
know-
I use a cab in every situation.
Right.
Because as a bass player,
You've
if there's
gotta
no
f-
fallback on stage, I
yeah,
feel like I need to go home.
Yep.
Yeah, the
Because-
in-ears can't
And the
deliver
in-ears
that.
can't do that, right?
Can't deliver that.
I mean,
you're
I
not
would
feeling
need
it.
a what's it called? A Porter Davies,
That's the company that do the platform thing.
which is a platform that like does that essentially.
And a gamer vest.
Yeah.
Have you seen some guys
Yes,
use
I
that?
have.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they go to the trouble of standing on these vibrating platforms with these gamer vests on so they can feel it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
brother,
So-
just get a cab.
yeah, I always use a cab because we've tried it in the Rogues thing where I wouldn't use a cab, and even though we've got subs and stuff, I don't perform as well because all I can hear is mids.
Yeah, okay.
All I can hear is like clanky mids
Yeah.
of my bass, and I can't feel it. And I'm so used to that like feedback of playing a note and feeling it that it feels sterile, and I just play. I feel
Sure.
like I don't play it,
Yeah.
you know.
Okay. I think so. That was okay. Really interesting. I think we'll leave it there. Just have a
Yeah.
quick. I know we've
Well, that's
gone
fine.
over a little bit, but what I want to do is we'll continue this conversation, but I want to bring. I want to bring my mattress and the AC30 in.
Sure,
Yeah, dude.
And just we'll have a play,
totally,
and then
man.
we'll,
Have a tone off.
yeah. I'm just interested.
No, I get it. I get it.
Interested for you to experience
Yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
But
you
also
know.
for you to hear the other side
Yeah,
of it,
completely.
like set up in a very
in a way that
specific
works
way.
for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Okay, brilliant. Well, that was really fun.
Yeah, that was.
How you doing, Lizzie?
Yes, good, thank you.
Did we miss anything?
There are just a couple of quick questions,
Yep.
if we don't mind.
Yep.
We had someone ask, how many pedals do you guys think a switcher is valuable?
I think as soon as you get to 4 or more,
Yeah.
Yeah,
4
I
or more
agree.
buffers in line, it's just like I'm out. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah,
for
that's
me
fair.
is
Yeah,
at
yeah.
least a
That's fair.
quartermaster.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So there you go. Official. 4 or more.
4 or more.
4 more Dan's out.
And are there potential phase issues if running amps on stage as well as to a PA or any other sort of consideration needed?
So if you're stood behind the front of house and you've got your sound, then no, because there's enough of a distance between you, and the frequencies that you're hearing from behind the PA are not going to be a problem to you.
Yeah.
But if your amp for some reason
It's
is
like a
in
mirror.
line with the PA,
Yeah. Then you're going to have
then
weirdness.
you're going to have
Yeah.
weirdness. But generally, no, because it's certainly a thing. If you've got a really heavy, loads of low end tone, then definitely switching phase. But then we've got relative phase, and we switch the polarity and it flips the phase. But then we've got a time-based phase, and it's a different thing. If you think about a flanger, right? And let's say we've got a flanger at 10 milliseconds, and when those two signals together, you've got your signal goes in, it's split, it goes through a delay line, is moved by 10 milliseconds, and then that creates what we call a comb filter, where some frequencies add and some frequencies cancel. Same thing happens when you've got two speakers, that same signal's receiving, and then you move the distance from one to the other. what happens in a chorus or a flanger is that distance is constantly moving, so we get, that
movement.
the movement,
yeah.
the modulation. We've got Barry from Exactone is on. This is very interesting. It says, "Hey, we built a HXFX rig for Matt Scannell with an external KOT. That was his core sound. He could make easy global changes to compensate for room rental backlines.
Yeah, cool.
Wet stuff stays the same. Very cool. Very cool. Thanks for joining us, Barry. I absolutely love your Exactone. They did the amazing
unreal.
build.
So
builds.
unreal.
So
Such
great.
a talented builder.
That flies or moth.
It's
or
doing
whatever
my
it is.
nut in, to be honest. Can you stop it, bud?
Yeah, but it's certainly less of a problem than having 2 amps. But absolutely, if you've got a bass heavy tone, and you can try switching the phase and seeing which one is more pleasing to you.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
Brilliant.
Cool.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Take it easy.
Thank
See
you,
you later.
Lizzie. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.